All right, everybody, welcome, one and all. My name is Josh. I am the fantasy football buff, and I am joined, as always, with Noah. And guys, it's that time of year, man. The 2020 season is wrapped up, and so it's time for the yearly Buffy Awards, right? The yearly fantasy football awards, and we're going to be handing out some of the most prestigious awards in the fantasy football community. And we're going to, talk about last night's game a little bit, right? Because we saw one of the top offensive performances I've seen in college football, at least this season, right? We're going to give it that. So without further ado, let's hit that intro. Guys, if you're new to the channel, welcome, first of all. We're glad to hear Noah and I are actually in a Dynasty league together, and we just sit here and talk Dynasty. We're really excited about this episode. But if you're new, please subscribe. Noah, a little known fact, man. I was going through the YouTube analytics earlier today, and it's something crazy. Like only 80% of the people who watch our videos are not subscribed. Can you imagine 80% of you? So if you're watching, statistically speaking, chances are you aren't subscribed. So it's time to make that move, especially because you're not going to want to miss next next week, 2 weeks from now?
Monday the 9th.
Monday the
11th. Monday the 11th.
That's it. Monday the 11th, guys. If you're new here, you might not know, but Noah and I actually live across the country. I'm in Utah. He's all the way out in Florida. He will be visiting in town for the college football championship game. It's going to be an amazing game between Ohio State and Alabama, and we're going to do a live stream. We're going to be on the channel live stream at halftime, doing a little bit of not only analysis on the game that we're currently watching, talking about the game, but also answering any questions you might have. So go fill the comments with the questions you have. Go find me on Instagram at fantasy.football.buff. Send the questions that you want answered, and we'll print them out and talk about it, man, during the game. So that's set a calendar. I'll be sending out invites and be hyping it up on the channel as well, because Monday the 11th. What date did we decide?
It's Monday the 11th. Bama and Ohio State kickoff. It's probably going to be around 8:12, 8:15 by the time they kick off Eastern time.
Yep.
So I would imagine halftime will be on around 9:30, 9:45 Eastern time, which is going to be about 7:30, 7:45 Mountain Standard Time, which is where we will be.
Perfect. I'm excited, man. I'm excited. It's going to be a good time, guys. Not something I don't want to miss. So subscribe, like, and we'll see you then. Let's jump into the awards. Let's start, before we get into the Buffy Awards, let's start with a little bit of housekeeping. And Noah, first of all, welcome, man. It's great to have you. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year, bro.
Thanks, man. I'm really, really excited about 2021 for one of these reasons, right? And I'm going to start with this, right? I'm not going to pretend to be some crazy analyst, or I'm not going to pretend to be some expert. I'm not going to pretend to be some quarterback whisperer and know the ins and outs and the complexities of what makes a good quarterback prospect. I'm just a guy who really enjoys watching football and playing Dynasty. And I'll say this, man. In the NFL draft, drafting Zach Wilson over Justin Fields would be a massive mistake at this stage of the game. And I don't know if people are still saying that after last night's game. I don't know if people are even having that conversation, but and again, I'm from Utah, man. I am a University of Utah fan, so I'm not necessarily a BYU fan, actually just the opposite. And no slander, absolutely no slander towards Zach Wilson, but man, dude, Justin Fields was looking like the real deal last night, man. He had the same amount of touchdowns thrown as he did incompletions, right? And it's the same as he did incompletions, man. Like, he had 6 touchdowns thrown and also only 6 incompletions, and he looked great on the field as well, rushing. And, man, I'm not convinced he's not playing with broken ribs out there. Like, just the strength and the grit he had after taking that crazy hit to get back up and to be on the field, man. Like, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. So I still think that Trevor Lawrence will go at the 101, right? I still think that Trevor Lawrence as a prospect will be the first quarterback draft. I think that's how it should be as of right now. and going to the Jags. But that being said, I don't know what the Jets are going to do. I don't know if they trade back. I don't know what they're going to do with that pick. I mean, if they pick up Swelly, I can never pronounce his last name. The O lineman out of Oregon, Penny
Sewell.
Penny Sewell. I can never pronounce his name to save my life. I would not blame the Jets if they take Sewell there with the second overall pick, right? I think he's that good over Fields, but if the Dolphins currently are projected to have the third overall pick, if I'm the Falcons who have the fourth pick, if I'm the Panthers who have the seventh, eighth pick, they're a little farther back, I'm reaching out. I'm reaching out to the Dolphins and say, hey, man, what do you want for this? Because I think Justin Fields is someone you cannot miss on. So, hey, man, what are your thoughts here? Do you think that the Zach Wilson versus Fields conversation is still even a conversation? And to add on that, do you think the Jets should be drafting Fields? Because I honestly think they should. I don't know if they will, but I think they should.
Well, it's just a lot of it depends on who's going to be coaching the Jets.
Yeah.
I think Hastellay is big, because I think if you have Adam Gase there, I don't really think you take another quarterback.
Yeah.
That's just me. I think and the thing is, the Jets are still, they're probably 2 years away from being a year away. Like they got some work to do. I mean, they got picks and they got some stuff that they got, but that's what killed Andrew Luck, and that's what shortened his career. Is you drafted the best quarterback prospect since Peyton Manning, but you didn't have any other team around him.
Yeah.
Offensive line was trash. He barely had any receivers. Didn't really have a run game involved. So it got tough because he got drilled, man. And that's kind of what Sam Darnold's been dealing with. It's what Jameis dealt with for a really long time in Tampa. But then you look at a team, honestly, like the Chargers, and you got Justin Herbert in there. They're solidified veterans around him. They got a veteran running back. They got veteran receivers. They got a veteran tight end. Yeah. Their offensive line's not young and in shambles.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're the Jets, it's like, man, are you really putting your quarterback in a position to succeed? So personally, I'm probably trying to see what I can get for that pick.
Interesting.
And because I'm trying to get more, capital just to get better players on your team, because I don't think Sam Darnold's bad. I actually like Sam Darnold. And he's so young, and I think you have the chance to really put better pieces around him. And then let's say you let him play out his rookie contract, which probably, I think it has 2 more years on it after this season. You build through the draft 2 more years. If you don't like him, you cut loose and you get to draft another quarterback, or you bring in a veteran,
Absolutely.
And you move on like that. But if you draft Justin Fields, you're saying we're done with Sam Darnold, and then you got to move him. But the most you're going to get for him is, in my opinion, late 2nd round pick.
Yeah,
at
maybe.
most.
Yeah, maybe.
At most. So
Bill Belichick's going to come in there with a late 4th and somehow get Sam Darnold.
Well, and that's the thing. If you don't trade Sam Darnold before you draft another quarterback, the value of that quarterback is just tanked.
Yeah,
man, because it's like, dude, you got 2 quarterbacks. Like, you have fun, you'll hold on to that, and we'll just,
exactly.
We're not going to pay all this when he only has 2 years left. On his rookie deal, we're going to have to pay him sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So, most I'll get is 4th round pick. Type
exactly. Well, look at something similar. And I know it's different because Sam Darnold's on his rookie contract, but it's very similar with what's going on right now with the Eagles. Right, very, very similar, where they have this guy who most likely will give them a better chance to win a football game, which I think as a head coach is their main priority, right? Of course. But what are you going to do with the veteran, right? What are you going to do with the guy that you have? He's still good. He's still startable. Anyways, it's interesting.
Doug Peterson, I don't know if you heard, Doug Peterson said, going into this offseason, where he goes, Carson Wentz has more confidence right now. We're going to have to figure out what we're doing with our quarterback situation going into the offseason. So it's not even, they're not committing either way.
Interesting.
It's really, and maybe he's just saying that to try to talk up the price of Carson Wentz so that he can get it shipped out for anything.
Yeah.
That's probably the case, but.
Interesting. That's fascinating. That's fascinating. But it sounds like, going back to the original question, Zach Wilson is not even in the same tier as Justin Fields for you, is he? Or how would you see that? It's tough. Again, we're not going to pretend to be experts here, but just from a guy who watches
Ohio State's team is much better than BYU.
Yeah. They've also faced some pretty tough competition, though, man. Look what the BYU's doing.
Are you talking about Ohio State versus BYU?
BYU.
No, I'm just saying the pieces around Justin Fields are superior to the pieces around Zach Wilson.
Absolutely.
So if Justin Fields is going to be is going to hit the ground running and is going to be better initially than Zach Wilson, because the learning curve for Zach Wilson is going to be steeper.
Yeah.
I think Zach Wilson is the top of the tier 2 quarterbacks. And I honestly think it probably goes Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, tier 1.
Yeah.
1A, 1B in my opinion. And then you probably have tier 2 of just Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
And then tier 3 of everyone else. Obviously I got to go back and watch, but that's probably how I would rank it.
Yeah.
But I will say, if Zach Wilson were coming out next year, dude, he might be the number 1 guy.
Yeah. No, absolutely, man. He is looking great. Again, from Utah, I'd love to cheer for him. Another quick question for you on Justin Fields. If he does land, okay, Trevor Lawrence going to the Jags, right? We know that. It'd be something really strange if that doesn't happen, which I still think I'm very excited for him in fantasy in general. But looking from a fantasy perspective, if Fields somehow does land on the Falcons, land on the Panthers, is it crazy to say that Trevor Lawrence isn't a dynasty like the lock for the 101 pick?
I think it's just preference at that point. I mean, if it's Atlanta, it's Atlanta, and the Jags just have so much more you're building behind.
Yeah.
If he goes to Atlanta, he's gonna sit behind Matt Ryan for
same with the Panthers
9 games.
Yeah, same with the
Panthers. You're probably sitting for 8-9 games. I would imagine probably having a Tua-ish situation go on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I think with that being said, I mean, I think you got to pick the guy that's going to be starting day 1.
Absolutely.
And just now you could have preference and decide, hey, I'm going to go with him just because I like him, or I'm going to go with him because I like him, which is totally cool. Like, dude, pick who you want,
Yeah.
And a lot of the times when I draft, I'm like, all right, who do I not want to see on someone else's team, and do I have the chance to have them right now? And that's sometimes how you got to go into fantasy.
Yeah, exactly, man. And one last takeaway from the game, because I know we got to jump into these awards here. One last takeaway from last night's game was that Chris Olave, right, the wide receiver out of for the Buckeyes. I know he's not the biggest guy, right? I know he's not the fastest guy, but man, his routes were crispy last night. There was multiple times I was sitting there on my couch, again, just watching football, like, whoa, where'd the DB go, right? The man, he is open. He is someone that I think isn't being talked. I don't think he's necessarily a top-tier wide receiver in this upcoming rookie class, but he's someone that I think you can get later on that has, and I don't want to put him in these shoes, but he reminds me of maybe a slightly slower Terry McLaurin, maybe. Right now, I don't want to put him in that same category because Terry McLaurin's a god, but incredibly great routes will probably fall a little bit in the draft. Incredibly crispy routes. And very likely will fall in the draft compared to the other weapons, the wide receivers out there. Someone who I think is someone I want on my teams, depending on where he lands for sure. What are your thoughts here, Chris?
I don't know if he's going to run as fast as Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because McLaurin has some crazy speed, but I'm saying a little bit slower.
McLaurin 40 time. Let me look.
Oh, dude, he blew it up, man.
He 4.35, and let's see.
I'm speaking exclusively when it comes to falling in the draft and route running ability. That's the only thing that I'm talking about. I'm not talking speed.
Well, I'm just saying, if you're going to compare, this is who I think he's more like. I think he's much more. I think he plays much more like a Michael Pittman.
Oh, there you go. Interesting.
He's not as tall.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Olave is not as tall. He's listed at 6'1". And Pittman's 6'4".
Man, he's a big dude.
6'4". But I think Chris Olave plays very similarly.
Interesting.
In terms of, I think that's how he fits an offense. He's the X receiver. He's going to go out on the perimeter, and he's going to be that guy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So someone to keep an eye on, guys. Again, this is a Dynasty channel first, so we're always talking about that. All right, that was the game last night. Let's shift into a couple of followers' questions. We do, whether it's the YouTube comments, whether it's over on Instagram at fantasy.football.buff. Guys, go follow me. We're always responding to questions, always talking Dynasty out there. And we have an Instagram question today from Alex Scher. And he has a massive trade offer coming his way, right? He's got a massive trade. It's a single quarterback Dynasty trade. And he is going to give up Josh Jacobs, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Booker, the 28th overall pick, and the 59th overall pick. Again, I'll have this all on the screen for you guys to make sure you're following. And he wants to trade that haul for DJ Moore, who I personally think is an excellent buy low candidate, especially if we're talking about a potential quarterback upgrade, especially if we're talking about the where Curtis Samuel might land. I'm pretty sure he's a free agent coming into this offseason. But on top of all that, the 6th overall pick, the 7th overall pick, the 13th pick, and the 23rd pick. So he gives up pretty much Josh Jacobs, Cooper Kupp, and his handcuff and Booker, Cooper Kupp, and then a couple later picks for pretty much the entire second half of the first round of this class, and then the 23rd overall pick and DJ Moore. So I looked at it, and his biggest concern right now is if he loses Josh Jacobs, he is only left with Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry. And those aren't two scrubs, man. Those are two amazing running. If he was left with like and now I have Le'Veon Bell, like with just a dynasty trash running back, then I would be a little bit more against this. But let's just look at this trade as it is right now, especially knowing that he's a little shallow at running back. Would you make this trade considering you get DJ Moore in the entirety of the second half of that first round, pretty much?
I'm taking this trade.
Yeah, I am too.
For the reason that you move up, you go from the 28th to the 59th, and you get 6, 7, 13, and 23.
Yeah.
You get a much more promising wide receiver prospect than DJ Moore, who's still super young, but has already had a breakout season last year. This year, it's kind of been more of a learning curve for that offense and how to get him the ball, but was still consistent. He had a couple games where it wasn't great, but still put up good points.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm okay giving up Josh Jacobs and Devontae Booker because I think the running back depth, I think having back-to-back picks at 6 and 7 allows you pretty much to take the best running back and the best receiver still there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then honestly, depending on where he goes, like you could go running back, receiver with the 6th and 7th pick, whoever you like. And then at the 13th pick, if somehow, some way Kyle Pitts falls to you, you could draft your replacement eventually to Travis Kelce, because that's who he has a tight end.
Yeah.
And I think that would be a much better way of rounding it out. You get depth, you get young guys. It helps you kind of have helps you solidify going into next year. And I'm all about getting more picks this year. And I think selling Josh Jacobs. I mean, Josh Jacobs I think he's gonna have a good year next year.
Yeah. Me too.
And I think immediately you're gonna be like, wow, I sold Josh Jacobs, but you're gonna look at what you're getting, and you got to realize Derrick Henry is kind of getting close to maybe he's gonna fall off. He's getting to that age where running backs don't last anymore. Josh Jacobs, 2 years behind him.
Yeah.
And so it's like you got Jonathan Taylor, who has his fresh 3 years ahead of him, assuming no injury.
Oh yeah.
You got Michael Thomas and Tyler Lockett, who are both older. You got Woods and Kupp, who are both older. And then after that, you got Gallman, Crowder, Corey Davis, McKissick, which again, they're just older. So I think doing this trade allows you to get younger at receiver with DJ Moore, who could, I'm not saying he's going to put up Michael Thomas numbers, but could fill into Michael Thomas' role if Michael Thomas continues to play hurt.
Yeah.
And then you get flipping four top 25 picks. I mean,
it's great.
I would be hitting yes immediately.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
No, I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. So I love the strategy of taking Kyle Pitts there at 13, which he might still be. I don't know where he'll land in the draft, but especially since he has Kelce, it's kind of it's a win-win situation, right? Even if Kyle Pitts takes a year or two to develop, depending on what scheme he lands in, you have Travis Kelce to carry your team the next couple of years. Then you'll have another probably top 3 dynasty tight end right on your bench.
If you really like the landing spot of Kyle Pitts, take him at 7. Take him at 6 or 7, and then just be like, hey, I'll just get whatever the best receiver is at 13. And because the tier drops off after Kyle Pitts. So if he's there at 6, take him, then take your favorite running back or receiver if there's one that you must have, and then go from there.
It's an awesome trade. I definitely think he should take it. He did have a follow-up question for us. He's of course concerned with his depth at running back, and so he was considering, if he makes this trade, taking the 6th and 7th pick and approaching the owner of one of the top 3 picks right now, and offering the 6th and 7th for one of the top 3 picks to move up. What are your thoughts on that one? Right, he said he'd do it right now, approach him with the 6th and 7th, and ask for a top 3 pick in this draft.
I'd probably say offer him the 6th and the 13th.
Yeah.
And see what he says.
Yeah, because again, if ETN lands somewhere great, if Najee Harris lands somewhere great, right? They're going to be well worth, moving up in the draft for. Now, personally, my strategy when it comes to draft picks, I like to wait until the actual draft before I'm going to start moving players. Now, this is why, right? It's possible that, yes, Najee Harris and Travis Etienne could both go the 101 and the 102 in a single dynasty quarterback or a single quarterback dynasty league, right? It's possible that happens, but you don't know how the draft's going to play out, right? It's possible that you trade up to the 103 and neither of them were taken, right? And you could have waited. I would much rather wait till you get closer to the draft and trade up when it's necessary, as opposed to selling, the 6th and the 7th now. I would definitely try with like the 6th and the 23rd now or something like that, just because I think the 6th and the 7th will have such great value.
Having two back-to-back picks
I
would be in heaven.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would have a hard time just trading that away itself.
Yeah. Because again, you don't even know how the picks are going to play out for him.
Does he have a top 10 pick already? Did he already trade that away? Because he's not trading away a first round pick. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Is he only going to have the 6? Are those his only 4 picks, or does he have more picks?
That's a great question. I don't know, and that will change, right? Because that gives him more ammunition to move forward. I'll have to reach out and ask him personally, but I will say this, Alec, as of right now, I'd make this trade, but I wouldn't make any moves to move up in the draft just yet, right? I wouldn't. Let's see how the combine plays out. Let's see if there aren't any other running backs who land in preferable situations. And I don't necessarily think I don't think you have to resolve your running back situation. Just as general advice, I don't necessarily think that this class is a must when it comes to upgrading your running back situation. Right, I think there's a lot of great value at tight end, quarterback, and wide receiver, just looking at a high level in this upcoming class, and it's very top heavy from the running back perspective. But if I'm him, man, maybe I'm waiting. I would much rather, as opposed to trading the 6th and 7th overall pick, I would much rather take that 7th pick and try. And I don't know if people would even be interested in this, but take that 7th and maybe a later pick of his and try to go get a J.K. Dobbins. Right, try to go get Antonio Gibson. Right, if you're worried about your depth, a player, a top tier dynasty running back, right, who's at least top 20. I think I would much rather do that than sacrifice this draft just to move up to get a Najee Harris. I might be speaking a different tone, man. If Najee Harris ends up in Pittsburgh, I'm selling my house to get him, right? Because I don't care. I will, because the man's a beast. But that's what I would do. I wouldn't sell at this draft. Do you agree? How would you handle it?
I would. I'm with you. I would take it and have those picks as collateral, and then go from there. And if you get to draft players, great draft to have a lot of picks. If you get to trade for players, great draft to be able to trade away picks.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I wouldn't even be hesitating right now. I'd be hitting yes immediately.
And I will tell him this, and I'll tell everybody who's watching this: wait until you're closer to the draft to move your draft picks. Now's a great time to acquire draft picks, just because I think the value is still low comparatively. But your draft picks will only increase in value as time goes on. They'll only increase in value because you think about it right now, they're just numbers, right? They're just, a first, a second, they don't even know what that means. Wait till the combine happens. Wait till players actually get drafted and players' names and the hype gets associated with those picks, and those picks will only skyrocket in value. Right, so that's why I'm not big on trading picks right now. I'm trying to acquire them, but I'm holding them on to them for now. All right, let's move on to a second quick question from Hyperversity off of YouTube. Now, this man is in a full rebuild, right? He has the 1-1, the 1-3, the 1-4, and the 1-12 in this upcoming rookie draft class. And he watched our sleepers video, man, and he said that he is looking to acquire James Washington and Isaiah Coulter. Now, the team he wants to trade them for, he's looking to offer the 1-12. He's looking to offer Dalton Schultz. He's looking to offer the first pick of the 3rd round. For a late 2022 first, James Washington and Isaiah Coulter. That's the trade he wants to make right now. I don't know if I was clear enough, but it's pretty much the 1-12, Dalton Schultz, and the 3-1 for a late 2022 first, James Washington, Isaiah Coulter. I have a tough time analyzing this trade. I have a tough time personally swaying really hard yes or really hard no, because I personally would take the 1-12, which he's giving up, over a late 2022 first, right? I would personally take the 1-12 over James Washington and Isaiah Coulter. Right? Dalton Schultz, I think it's more of a filler piece. And then I think the 3-1 will have a lot of value. I think James Washington and Isaiah Coulter are probably around that same equivalent range of a 3-1. So he has so many draft picks, and I know when you have so many draft picks, it feels like they're expendable. But again, I know James Washington, he's looked good, man. And with Juju gone, maybe he has some opportunity. And Isaiah Coulter, I was just hyping him up. We don't know what it's going to look like next offseason. But again, he's a sleeper. There's no guarantee he's going to hit. And I guess that is the same for all these draft picks. But I don't know, man. I just looking at it for me, I would rather have the 112 than, of course, looking into 2022's draft class. I'd much rather have the 112. Dalton Schultz, I'm kind of indifferent on. And then the 3-1, I think has a lot of potential value late in your draft as well. So I don't know, man. What's your analysis here? Maybe you can give a better answer than I did. But I'm not super excited about this trade.
If you're gonna, I'm not either. And if you're gonna take that trade, I wouldn't take it until draft time.
Yeah.
Because I think you can decide if you want to trade the 1.12 during the draft.
Yeah.
Rather than right now. I don't think you're getting a haul that warrants what you would be getting, especially in a 2-quarterback league where quarterbacks are going to go early, which is going to push skill positions down, which is awesome.
Yeah. Awesome. Oh yeah.
You know, so I'm looking at. Yeah, I'll just keep what I got. I would love to have 4 top 12 picks.
Yeah,
I mean, I would
as well,
have 4 top 12 picks.
I wish our league was as trade happy with draft picks as other leagues are. Because I have people come at me all the time like, bro, I got like 3, 4, 5 first-round picks. Like, how are you doing this? I can't get a first-round pick to save my life, and I'm offering legit trades for him. Anyways, if I was him, like you said, hold on to it, wait till the draft gets closer, but I'm not smashing this trade anytime soon. I mean, I love Isaiah Coulter and James Washington as potential sleepers. But like you said, man, the 112, you could get a legitimate top 15 dynasty wide receiver, right at the 112, man. Like that 112 could have been Justin Jefferson. It could have been T. Higgins. It could have been any of those guys last year. And so when you put it from that perspective, and this class is just as good, I would hold on to it. I'd hold on to it. All right, man. Let's transition to what the people came for. Finally, I always lose track of time when we're doing this thing, but I don't even really care because it's time for the Buffy Awards. Let's go, man. Again, one of the most prestigious awards in the fantasy football community. And let's start off with a bang, right? Let's start off with a category that means a lot in Dynasty, right? Because Dynasty is a lot about patience, a lot about waiting, a lot about trusting players. So we're going to start with the Better Late Than Never Award. That is the Fantasy Breakout Player of the Year, a player that we didn't know, man. We didn't know if this guy was ever going to break out, and then they did, right? And it's a guy we need to celebrate and send them their award. So who is the Better Late Than Never Award winner?
I hope I'm not taking your guy, because I think
I'll bet you are.
Let me look at his. Yeah, Better Late Than Never. It was entering his last year of the rookie contract.
Oh yeah. We're talking about the same guy, baby.
Was consistent on that offense. It was out a couple games, but I mean, was just such a reliable target down the end. Was such a great flex field play guy. Corey Davis, man, that's my guy. Better late than never. He's the definition of that.
Yeah.
And he bought himself another contract because if he doesn't ball out this year, he is going to be struggling to find he's not going to struggle to find a job.
Yeah.
But what he's worth, he would be struggling to get. So Corey Davis, on the year, on the year, what did he put up? He had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 games out of, he missed 2 games. So 10 games out of 15. He had 1,
15, yeah.
2. Yeah, I'm looking at his points. He had 2 games where he played and didn't score over 10 points.
Yeah, so this is how I'll put it, right? Because Corey Davis was, we all know, former first-round pick to the Titans, right? And after all these years, there was always hype in the offseason, but then he was just kind of universally given up on, right, in the Dynasty community. Like, all right, how many chances are we going to give this guy? This season, he was the 26th wide receiver in average points, right? He averaged 14 points a game. And this is including the 3 games where he scored 0, and scored 3 points. So he had a low floor on those games. And despite having such a low floor, he still averaged 14 points a game, being the wide receiver 26 in average points. Now, outside of those 3 terrible games, right, he never scored under 10 PPR points. So I get it. He had games where he goosed you, right? You got nothing in that flex spot. But outside of that, man, every other week he had at least had 10 points, which is exactly what you want to see in your flex spot. And so pretty much, I mean, you do the math, 77% of his games. 77% of his games, he was at least a wide receiver 2, putting up those double-digit points or better. That's awesome. That's all you can ask for out of a flex spot. Corey Davis is someone who finally broke out. Better late than never. Corey Davis, congratulations, man. Your Buffy is in the mail. We're sending it to him. We're shipping it officially. All right, man. I'm ready. Are you ready to move on to the Fantasy Rookie of the Year, the AKA the Beginner's Luck Award?
Yes.
Now, you go ahead and kick us off because you might have the same guy as I do. You and I are on the same wavelength so far. So let's see where you're.
Well, I mean, the easy pick here for Rookie of the Year is Justin Jefferson.
Absolutely.
I mean, even from a non-rookie standpoint, he was awesome.
Yep.
Filled in the Stephon Diggs role about as well as you could ask for from a rookie. Has big play potential, reliable, can stretch the field deep. Plays and really, didn't really play second fiddle to Thielen. It really felt like a true 1A, 1B type of option with Dalvin Cook running the ball. Mm-hmm. And for you to get that in a COVID year with Kirk Cousins throwing you the ball, with a healthy Vikings defense, I mean, this team is tough to beat. Yeah. But the Vikings just struggled with injuries and COVID, so that's why they're seated up. But I mean, Justin Jefferson moving forward is worth multiple first-round picks.
Absolutely. I totally agree, man. Of course, my fantasy rookie of the year is Justin Jefferson as well, man. I mean, you said it all perfectly. He was the wide receiver 8 on the season. Top 10 wide receiver on the season. He's only 20. He just turned 22, so he was doing it as a 21-year-old rookie. Again, weird offseason, and I think people forget as well, he missed significant time of the limited training camp to begin with because he got COVID, or he was on the COVID list for a little bit. So he was someone I was totally fading in all fantasy formats coming into this year because of all those reasons, right? And he pretty much, flipped me off and told me that I need to he totally proved me wrong, man. He really did. I mean, okay, he's a rookie, and I know it's tough to sometimes just to delete games sometimes, but he only got, I think it was 60% or more of snaps after week 2, right? So he was still acclimating to the offense, was coming off the COVID list. Weeks 3 through 16, when he was on the field 100%, or not 100% of the time, but when he was playing his full allotment of snaps, he was the wide receiver 4 over that stretch. The wide receiver 4. He was a top 5 wide receiver. And I'll tell you this, man. Give him a year to develop. Give him a year to build chemistry with Kirk Cousins, a full offseason with him. He is already the wide receiver 1 in Minnesota. I know it might not look like that because of the fantasy finishes between Thielen and Justin Jefferson, but some people aren't realizing that Thielen scored 14 touchdowns on the year. Did you realize that? The only reason Thielen's a great player, right? He performed, but he scored 14 touchdowns. That's the only reason he finished where he finished in fantasy this past season. Justin Jefferson, I think he had I don't know his touchdown totals off the top of my head, but just give him another season, another offseason, develop, let Thielen will slowly phase out. Justin Jefferson is going to be a top 5 dynasty wide receiver. I think he's already a top 5 dynasty wide receiver. I would go as far to say he's already that high for me, and and he's someone who's going to be a baller on your team for years to come, especially as he continues to develop, especially as Thielen is slowly phased out more and more. I'm telling you, man, Justin Jefferson's the truth. Like he's already getting comps to Michael Thomas, right? Just in there when it comes to their physical ability, when it comes to their route running, and I could see a very similar trajectory on that front as well. So, and then just throw out there my runner-up for Fantasy Rookie of the Year. It's got to be Justin Herbert, man. It's got to be Justin Herbert. He came out balling on a team that, wasn't winning a lot of games, right? On a defense, across from a defense that was really banged up. He came in as a rookie, right? Who wasn't even expecting to start until someone stabbed Tyrod Taylor in the lungs, and then just broke all these rookie records. So I will say this though. I love Justin Herbert, and I'm very excited about him for the future. But I don't know. Do you listen to the Fantasy Footballers at all? Their podcast? They're great, man. They're super funny. They give excellent fantasy redraft advice. And he put this perfectly. He said, that Justin Herbert broke all these records, and he is so confident in Herbert going down the road for the future. But he also felt the same way with Baker Mayfield. When Baker Mayfield came out, had that dynamic finish of the season, was projected to break all those records, was on pace to do so. Not to say that Herbert is Baker Mayfield, not to say that Herbert isn't already a top 8, if not top 5 dynasty quarterback. I would just be hesitant, and the reason he's not my fantasy rookie of the year, I would just be hesitant to sell any sure pieces for Justin Herbert. I've had people say, well, hey, man, there's a legitimate strategy of trading Patrick Mahomes for Justin Herbert and a first-round pick, right? And if you look at it, like, okay, they actually have very similar production on the season, right? I mean, he's younger technically, but I'm just saying he's not locked into Patrick Mahomes' career. He's not locked in to be a top 5 quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. Like I believe Patrick Mahomes is. So anyways, I'm just throwing that out there. He's the runner-up. He was fantastic. He's someone who I don't even know if you can afford to purchase him anymore. But anyways, those are the fantasy rookies of the year, man. What are your thoughts real quick on Herbert here?
It just sucks that his coaching staff sucks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But, I'm excited that he deep ball ability all the time, can move, is not a statue in the pocket, tall, big arm. I think could really benefit from having a ground game. I honestly think that's what got them in trouble so many times this year is they didn't have a solidified run game, and so he had to throw it 50 times a game, which end of the game, if that's how you got to play, you're just killing your defense, you're killing your offense, it's just, you're not playing smart, strategic football.
Yeah.
And so I think with the new coaching, you got to think they're going to bring in a new coaching staff, but with a new coaching staff that this is going to kind of bounce back. And I think that job, if that were to become open, and the Jags jobs are equally as attractive.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially with Trevor Lawrence coming, man. I totally agree. I'm really excited to see coaching wise where that all lands. But all right, man. Justin Jefferson, dude, you're a baller, man. Rookie of the year, hands down. All right, man. Let's go to the again. I gave names to all these awards. The next award is the Sneaky 10 Award. Now, what does this mean? Sneaky 10. What does that even mean? Imagine you're at a party. Oh, you've seen all the high school drama movies, right? We got the girl with the braces and the glasses and the pigtails, and she's maybe a 5, maybe a 6. You're not super excited about her. No one's really even paying attention to her. She's, and then she comes down one day, and the guy asks her out, says, you should go to prom with me. And then she comes down the stairs to prom. When no one else wanted to take her to prom, she comes down the stairs, and the glasses are off, the braces are gone, the hair is down, and she's gorgeous, right? She's a sneaky 10. That is the fantasy steal of this draft, man. Who is your fantasy steal of the 2020 draft?
Typically a guy that was being drafted in the second round, but fell hard this year due to team circumstances. Such a reliable guy, proven year in, year out, one of the best route runners in the NFL. No other than Keenan Allen, man.
Ooh, oh yeah.
He's the sneaky 10. He, in our league at least, he is the 10th receiver ranked at the 10th receiver in the NFL. And he was getting redraft leagues. He was going 4th, 5th round.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's just man, you're really sleeping on Keenan Allen, and everyone was afraid. Yeah. Lost Phillip Rivers. Here comes Tyrod. Tyrod's not going to get him the ball. They're going to throw it to the tight end. Eckler's going to get all this dump-off passes. But it's dude, Keenan Allen's I'm still here, man.
Yeah.
I'm ready to go. This year, as of now, he has 242 in our league, PPR, 242.1 fantasy points over 14 games, which gives him the 10th ranked. He's seen the second most targets in his career at 140, third most targets of his career at 147.
Wow.
Third most receptions, and if he gets over 4 catches this year, will be the most receptions.
That's crazy.
The most touchdowns this year, he scored 8 touchdowns.
That's crazy.
And so the volume was there, but everyone was just so afraid to dive into the Chargers and what they were doing this offseason. Yeah, a lot of positions slipped. But Keenan Allen still produced, still came out and did his thing. So Keenan Allen, man, if you drafted him, you had a good chance of making the playoffs, and you had a good chance of winning it all because, I'm looking in our draft, he went 5th round in the Dynasty. He went 5.03.
Yeah.
And DJ Moore I took him at the end of the second round. and a bunch of these other guys,
Yeah.
that went way ahead of him,
Absolutely.
And so, great. That's my guy. And I think he's continually slept on because he plays for the Chargers.
Yeah, absolutely, man. He is such an amazing football player. He is such an amazing we want to talk about crispy routes, man. Go watch some Keenan Allen highlights. It's crazy.
Extra crispy, extra crispy. I like crispy fries, but I like going to a restaurant ordering extra crispy fries.
Dude, and that's Keenan Allen's routes right there. And the thing is,
extra crispy.
Dude, the man's third in the league in targets right now. That's all the back on Justin Herbert. I'm curious to hear just really quickly what your perspective is on his dynasty value. He is 28 years old. He will be 29 going into next season. And typically, we see wide receivers ball out even into their 31, 32 level age. How do you value him in dynasty? Because I do believe as long as he is on the field and as long as Justin Herbert's under center, I do believe it's possible that he is still a consistent top 10 fantasy wide receiver, not even higher, over the next 2-3 seasons. That's how
I can agree with that.
Yeah.
The only thing that's going to get in his way, he has a history of getting hurt.
Yeah, that's very true.
So if he has one more season-ending injury or has one more really bad hamstring or really bad high ankle sprain, that could be what causes him to be done. Yeah. In terms of what of him. I really do think this year was the year to own him. Yeah. I think over the next 2 or 3 years, if he stays healthy, is going to be awesome with Justin Herbert.
Oh, yeah.
Because if the Chargers get healthy, man, which we say every offseason, if the Chargers can if the Chargers can figure out how to stay healthy, their roster is loaded with talent.
Oh, yeah.
They're ready to win. And they're probably in the second toughest division in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
I think the toughest division in the NFL is the NFC West.
Yeah.
Cardinals, Niners, Seahawks, Rams.
Yeah.
I think the AFC West could be deemed the second toughest division between the going into next year with Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers. I think that division, is like that's a tough division to even to go 500 in. Even the Raiders snuck one on the Chiefs this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, man.
Keenan Allen moving forward, love him. I think he's awesome. I think the next 2 years he's awesome piece to add. If you're a receiver down and you need to add another weapon to get to, I think he's a great you have end of first round or middle second round and you want to throw a pick at someone. I think he's a great guy to try to go up and get.
Absolutely, man. Especially for a team like mine.
Precisely.
Yeah, I genuinely feel I am one piece away from a championship, or one flex spot. And if I can get Keenan Allen and he performs the way he did over the next 2 years, we'll see, man. I think his price is definitely high right now. So I might let it simmer out a little bit.
I always think Keenan Allen's price is lower than it should be.
It's true. That is actually.
I always think you can get Keenan Allen cheaper than you could get. You're going to get, I don't want to say similar, but you're going to get pretty much like a tier 2 Devontae Adams type of performance.
Yeah.
And you can get him probably significantly cheaper than you could get Devontae Adams.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I know that for a fact, man. Absolutely. Interesting. Well, that's why he's a Sneaky 10 award, man. That's why he is your winner. My Sneaky 10 award, it's got to go to James Robinson, man. It just has to. He was in our Dynasty League. He was literally a waiver wire pickup. Someone I totally slept on, but I'm going to keep it brief for the people because I've talked a lot about James Robinson. I just put out a huge Instagram post just showing love to him. He was a waiver wire pick turned into an RB1, right, man? Over the games he played, he was the RB4 on the season. He was consistent. To put a bow on it, right, to sum up why James Robinson won this award for me, he set the undrafted free agent record award, right? He set the record for most scrimmage yards in a season with on 13 games, right? With only played 13 games, and he put up the most scrimmage yards for any undrafted rookie on 13 games with a COVID offseason on a trash offense. That's enough for me, man. That you get the award, James. Congratulations, man. You balled out. All right. Let's translate to the next award. This is, again, I'm making up my own names for this. This is the Whiskey Dick Award. I'm going to call it. Award. This is the award that, like, man, you were so excited about. All the signs were showing good things. You were just anticipating. You put all your time and energy into getting to this point. Yeah, Whiskey Dick, man. All of a sudden, all the hype was for nothing. And if you had this player, probably didn't make it very far in the season. That's the Fantasy Bust Award. Go ahead, man. Who's your fantasy bust this season?
You know, he was drafted as a late first round, early second round pick. Got paid. You were expecting big things. At least a solid, top 10, top 12 running back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But Joe Mixon, man.
Yeah. It's tough.
Gotta be the biggest disappointment of the year.
Yeah.
Just because, he was primed. Offensive line was going to be healthier.
Joe Burrow coming in.
The Joe Burrow coming in. They got receivers healthy. You were expecting he finished the year so well last year. Hopefully they can build off that run success. But, he just sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't look good when he was out there. He's hurt all year. It got to be the biggest disappointment, especially in a redraft league. And if I'm a dynasty owner of Joe Mixon, I'm like, dude, what do I do with this guy? You can't. It's hard to. It's like stocks. It's like having a stock. You're down $300. You want to get something, but they're only going to give you $100 for it, and you're like, dude.
Yeah.
It's tough. So probably Joe Mixon. It's a tough one. I have no idea what to think about the Bengals moving forward. No idea.
Interesting. So for me, it's tough, man. I own Joe Mixon a lot of places this upcoming year. I was really, really excited for him. And as every offseason will happen, right, we'll talk about how we started seeing more snaps and how we started seeing more targets before he got hurt, and then start hyping up again. But I'm with you, man. He was definitely the biggest bust of this draft. I mean, or at least one of them. And it's really tough as the owner, right? Because Nick Laboon has him in our league, and if I'm Nick, I'm holding on to Joe Mixon right now. I think his value could not be lower, and I do think he's going to come back with that contract with maybe a slightly upgraded offensive line after this offseason with hopefully Joe Burrow and T. Higgins coming back on that offense, and I do think he will at least be a floor play at a high-end RB2, low-end RB1. That's how I see Joe Mixon. I think he's a floor play. I don't think he sees enough targets, and I don't know if he'll see the end zone enough to see enough snaps to be a top-tier running back anymore. But, I mean, those floor play running backs have a lot of value. And so if I'm him, I'm holding on for now. But I agree with you, man. Holding him in redraft sucked because every week he's like, oh, he's not injured that bad. He's going to come back. Oh, no, he's got – dude, it was miserable. The whole season holding him and then lying to us about him coming back was miserable. And that kind of feeds into my winner for the Whiskey Dick Award. It's Saquon Barkley. Right? And I understand that, I understand he got hurt. Right? I get it. I understand he got hurt. I'm just saying that, hype was at an all-time high for him. Hype was at an all-time high. He was a top 2 pick. And I just want to look at who wrecked your season more, right? Because Saquon Barkley CMC also got hurt, right? But at least when Christian McCaffrey got hurt, he had a viable handcuff that you could start, right? Like Mike Davis was still a top 10 running back with CMC out. Now, I mean, this is back-to-back seasons where Saquon struggled with injuries. But that being said, man, he's only 23 years old, right? He's not Zeke's age. He's still only 23 years old. He is still one of the, if not the best running back in the league. ACL tears you can come back from, right? We've seen that time and time again. We saw that with Adrian Peterson come back and have his best season in league history when he came back. And what was optimism for me, because I was not high on Saquon coming into the season. I actually put out a video that got a lot of hate saying I don't think he should be a top 2 pick. I couldn't project he got injured, but I mean, I guess technically I was right. But Barkley, speaking to his value, we saw Wayne Gallman and we saw the corpse of Devonta Freeman out there have patches of success over this past season without Saquon on the field. I'm worried about that offense. I'm worried about how many scoring opportunities he'll see, especially if I assume Daniel Jones will still be under center. But hey, man, when it comes to this season, I think he was one of the biggest busts considering he was a top 2 pick and then was just gone. Right? And again, that was out of his power. But he's someone that, from a dynasty perspective, it's not the end of the world. But at least this season, he was the biggest bust of the draft for me, just because he gave you nothing. At least Mixon gave you one 43-point week. At least that you had that one thing to hang around on. Saquon, I mean, dude, drafting early is tough enough, and then he was just gone, man. I don't know. You're the Barkley owner, right? You're the Barkley. So what is your perspective? Because, I mean, you said yourself, man, it felt like you genuinely lost, like, the core of your team when Saquon left, right? I mean, he was –
Well, you know, I think I view my team a lot of how I view the Giants team. You know, you lose a star stud like that, you have to look at your team and go, okay, I'm not going to get carried by my first pick anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I got to see – is the depth that I drafted good enough, or do I need to sell everything and start over?
Yeah.
And to me, I was the 7th seed.
Yeah.
I was the first team out of the playoffs, which is exactly where I wanted to be. I wanted to be there.
Going for
the person I was going against in week 13 was Zach, and I was like, hey, you have this person started, but I need you to win.
Yeah.
Because I told him I can't tank my lineup and play like people that aren't going to play.
Yeah.
Because that's active tanking. That's not cool. I'd be pissed if anyone else did it in the league. I got to play my best lineup, but I need you to play a better lineup than me. So I gave him advice. I was like, hey, man, really think about starting this guy. I think he's going to have a good week. I'm not trying to trip you up. I want to lose, but I can't, like, forfeit. You know, there's integrity to have in the Dynasty League. You know, if you're going to make the playoffs, you're going to make the playoffs. So, you know, I really got to discover what my team was like, and I think the Giants got to too. I think they looked at it, especially with a first-year head coach and Joe Judge. I think they got to look at it and they go, what do we have? How do we establish ourselves? How do we not make Saquon? You know, you got to look. Is Daniel Jones the guy? Is he not? Because if you can't do it without Saquon, he's not going to be. How good can he be with Saquon? You know, and so I think it was a great year for Daniel Jones to kind of learn and take ownership of the offense. I think they realized they're a little bit lacking on the receiving core, but Wayne Gallman came in and he's played well.
Yeah.
You know, they have been the Giants are not out of the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, look at the division they're in, but yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
No, but I think they play great defense.
Yeah.
The Giants play great defense. I think the Giants and the Redskins play football team. They play fantastic defense. And from a dynasty perspective, I got everything I wanted to out of my team. Yeah. You know, and if it's like, if I had Saquon, you know, that's 200. What is that? 200 points, 200 fantasy points that I'm not having.
Yeah.
Plus 300 points that I'm not having. You know, if he scores 15 points a game, you got 15 games. You know, that's what, 225.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, so I disagree. You know, I think it's worse to have a Michael Thomas type of year or an Austin Eckler type of year where you have to keep roster in a redraft, where you have to keep them on a roster spot.
Yeah.
But you don't know when they're going to come back. You keep getting it in limbo. Like when Saquon got out, it's like, okay, you can just drop him. Unless if it's a keeper league. Mm-hmm. If it's a keeper league, then it's like, okay, well then I got to hold on to him. But if it's just a standard redraft league and there's no difference into what your next year is going to be like, it's like, I'll just drop Saquon. Okay. Yeah, he was out, but he didn't hold up a roster spot for me. I was able to move on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I appreciate you mentioning a huge runner-up, a guy between Saquon and Michael Thomas. Those were the two that I was sitting there like, oh man, because it was. Again, we always talked about the natural regression that was going to happen with Michael Thomas when it just is targets. Like, he's not going to set the record for NFL receptions every single season. We get that, right? We get that. But, dude, like, he was drafted top 5 this past in the redraft leagues, and he just fell off a cliff. Well, of course, injuries. We don't know who his quarterback's going to be. Anyways, you hit it on the head. I still think both of them. I'm with you, man. I think they're all contenders for sure. Let's move on to the next category, though. Let's move on to the next category. This is the I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. This is the I'm not mad, right? This is the scariest thing. Like, hear my dad say this to me when I was a little kid. I'm not mad. I'm just so they're not necessarily a complete bust. This player didn't wreck your season. This player isn't the reason you lost. But he was a player that you personally were excited for, a guy that you were hyping up and didn't meet expectations, right? Didn't get there. And I'll give you who mine is, who won this award right now, and that's Josh Jacobs. And that's Josh Jacobs. Whoa, Josh Jacobs, man, he still finishes the RB9 on the season. Like, you're mad about an RB9 finish? And I'll just say this, man.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I'm just disappointed, Josh Jacobs. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed, man. Because I was hearing all offseason that if Josh Jacobs just saw X amount of targets, then he was going to be a top 3 running back this upcoming season. Finishes the RB9. He played 69% of snaps on 79% of his games. So the vast majority, and almost 80% of his games, he didn't even meet the 70% snap mark, which I know that's just disappointed, right? He's not that top tier running back I thought he was going to be. He only saw more than 5 targets twice and had 4 separate games, so an entire month of games where he saw 2 targets or less. So I mean, he had a steady floor. We just never saw the upside that I was hoping he'd see. We never saw the blow-up games that I was expecting of him. So, Josh Jacobs, I'm not mad, man. I'm just disappointed. That's the award he's getting. Who's do you have a player off the top of your head?
I was gonna say Michael Thomas, but
Okay,
I am mad.
yeah.
I'm not just disappointed. I would be mad.
Pissed, man.
Yeah, and so if you're putting it pure disappointment, I think Michael Thomas, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Just with the, when he played, he put, he when he was on the field, he's Michael Thomas. He's going to get his points, but it was nothing like he came back and he wowed you, in my opinion.
Yeah.
His uncertainty going into the next last years of his career, last contract probably he's playing on, unless he gets 1-year deals after that somewhere. It's bleak. It's a lot of unsures. And I have full confidence in Sean Payton. I think it's going to be interesting, but the learning curve could be there.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to go, I'm not mad, I'm not disappointed, it kind of changes who I'm looking at.
Yeah.
You could throw DJ Chark in there for me personally, just because I drafted him. I drafted him over Tyler Lockett. I drafted him over Terry McLaurin. And when I drafted him, I go, you know what, dude? I know the Jags situation. I go, here's it is. If Minshew's awesome and he's the real deal, DJ Chark is going to eat. If Minshew's not the real deal, they're going to suck, and they're going to get a top pick. So I was like, DJ Chark is a 2-3 year investment, not this year investment. Yeah. And there were just times I was disappointed with his effort, personally.
Yeah.
But I also think it would be tough to have effort when you have like 4 different starting quarterbacks in a season, and you're open, and they're not getting you you're like, dude, you just can't give me the ball.
Yeah. They won week 1 and then never won again. Like, demoralizing, man. Like,
and they played tough, but I mean, their quarterback situation was just, I mean, I would love to have seen what Jameis could have done on the Jags.
Oh, yeah.
Personally, but
interesting.
DJ Chark, I have Michael Thomas. What'd you say?
I think DJ Chark's a perfect fit for this category. I think he's a perfect fit. Where you're not mad.
I'm just disappointed.
He still had some games.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, not bad, just disappointed. I love that. I think that's hysterical. All right, man. This is the real MVP award. This isn't fantasy MVP because there is, just statistically speaking, what they did for your team. They, we have a category for that. But this is your personal MVP, a player that every time they had success, a player that you love to see out there balling. Someone who on the field, just like you were just excited just to see them going, man, just to see them have success. Who was that player for you? I don't know
for
you.
Me, it has, when you put it like that, when you describe it like that, it has to be Ronald Jones for me.
Okay. Yeah.
I drafted him in our redraft league, or in our dynasty league, in the 13th round.
Wow. Yeah. No one
wanted him in the 13th round. No one wanted him. He has to be a top 15 running back this year. Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah.
But Ronald Jones undoubtedly for me takes the cake there. Let me see. He was the running back 21 on the season, but has missed many games.
Yeah.
But in terms of fantasy, maybe it wasn't the most productive games. Like, he had a lot of under 10.
Yeah.
But when I as a Bucs fan, when I watch him, I loved this guy out of USC. Yeah. Absolutely loved him. He's in his 3rd year. He's in his 3rd year. Yeah, he's in his 3rd year, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
So he's in his 3rd year.
Mm-hmm.
When he first was drafted, he was 20 years old. Had to move from where he's from, Southern California, to Tampa, and the adjustment for any 20-year-old doing that would be huge. Let alone when you're getting paid millions of dollars to go play for a professional football team. I can only imagine what that's like.
Yeah.
Kind of just culture shock. Being away from family. But man, when I watch him at USC, the dude never gets tackled.
Yeah.
The dude never gets tackled. And you know how Alvin Kamara never gets tackled? He kind of just gets scampered out of bounds, or he doesn't really get hit. That's how I felt about Ronald Jones. And when I watched him this year, when he got the ball, he'd make one cut, and he was making so many times the first guy miss. And I was like, this is awesome. I haven't seen a Bucs running back do this at all. So I'd have to say Ronald Jones. If somehow he can not have bricks for hands, he is a top 8 running back.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But he's only 23 years old. The dude's got juice. I mean, you know the difference between juice and sauce, right?
Absolutely.
Juice is temporary, but sauce is forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So right now, Ronald Jones has the juice.
Yeah.
But like Christian McCaffrey and Saquon has all the juice, but Christian McCaffrey has the sauce.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Just because Christian McCaffrey, the reason he's good is because he is so refined as a player. Like, you age so well as a player. Like, Larry Fitz has the sauce.
Absolutely.
Antonio Brown had the juice.
Interesting.
You know, and so I think right now, but you can turn your juice into sauce.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you can, but you can't turn sauce into juice. But you can turn juice into sauce.
Okay.
So Ronald Jones, and that's what really is the difference between being a good player and a great player in the NFL. Can you turn your juice into sauce?
Interesting.
The sauce can last forever. Juice, not so much. You run out of it.
Fascinating.
So I think if Ronald Jones, I think Leonard Fournette was the worst thing that happened to the Bucs. I think it was the worst thing that happened to the Bucs.
Interesting.
Because I think they try to force him in, and he just doesn't fit that offense.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so, personally, if he can get developed in the pass game more, which I think he's going to, I mean, Ronald Jones will have the sauce next year.
I like it, man. I like it, dude. I love that. That's a perfect That's a perfect response to this category where he necessarily wasn't. I mean, he was good in fantasy and off and on season. Most people might look at that as kind of an L because of the injuries and struggling with Fournette. But dude, you're right.
Dude, anytime he played, there was only one game where he played over 50% of snaps where he didn't have 15 plus points.
That's insane. Yeah, no, he's great.
It was not touchdown dependent at all.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it. And so, transition to my personal MVP, you guys already know who it is, right? There's no one who's watching this who's watched our videos before. You got to know it's Jonathan Taylor, man. He is my personal MVP. I'm naming my kid Jonathan Taylor, right? That's just who it's going to be, man. I am obsessed with this. I can't get over it. I risked it all earlier this season. I made a video about him. I got the hate for it. And now his rise to fantasy glory just makes me so incredibly happy. Every time he does anything, I freak out, man. He could run for like 3 yards. Dude,
in a room.
Jonathan Taylor could do nothing, right? He could sit on the bench and be, man, look at his technique on the bench, man. He's balling. He was the RB3 over the last month of the season.
You like the way he drinks water out of the water bottles, man.
Honestly.
Oh my God.
Dude, what I wouldn't give to be
just the technique of how he gets it into his mouth and into his system. It's just unbelievable. It's unlike any character, any football running back we've seen this quarter of the century.
Man, he is my Dynasty RB1, and that has nothing to do with my obsessive love for him. He was the RB3 over the last month of the season, and I get it, man. He had a cake schedule, and he scored 1 touchdown or more over that last stretch, right? So it was touchdown-driven, that RB3 success over the last month. But what I'd love to see, more than just the touchdowns, more than just the fantasy glory that he gave to my team, was the fact that Wilkins was nowhere to be found. Right, Wilkins was just gone. He was getting snaps before, and then Jonathan Taylor's like, actually, I'm a freak of nature. Get the fuck out of here. Right? Jonathan Taylor just took over, man. I love to see Taylor's volume, and then he just looked good, man. Like, everyone was criticizing his vision. Everyone was criticizing his decision-making, where he was able to turn that around mid-season. He had a touchdown against the Steelers, I believe it was, where he just hesitated for a second, let the play develop, and smashed the hole. Dude, I just freaking love Jonathan Taylor. I mean, his highlight run against the Raiders, where he ran for like 70-yard touchdown, was probably my highlight of the season. Right? It was probably where I was like up there. I was cheering. I was like sending things out on Instagram. I was so excited. I mean, I just can't, dude. I'm gonna get myself a Jonathan Taylor jersey. It'd be disrespectful otherwise. I know he might not be the fantasy MVP, but he's my MVP, man. I love Jonathan Taylor. I'm so happy he's on my team. He makes like. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'll give the full circle for everyone watching. I traded away Dalvin Cook earlier in the season, and may that have killed my playoff run? Entirely possible, right? It's entirely possible. Me getting rid of Dalvin Cook's the reason I didn't make the playoff this year. I did trade away who is, in my opinion, a top 10 Dynasty wide receiver in Terry McLaurin to acquire Jonathan Taylor. So you add all that in, the fact that my running back room was depleted, the fact that I gave up so much to get him, and that he came together. I mean, next season, Marlon Mack is most likely not going to be on the team. It's just so great. It's just so great. Anyways, that's my fantasy MVP. That's my personal MVP, man. But that's enough of me talking. I can only talk about Jonathan Taylor so much on this channel. Actually, that's not true. I'm going to make this a Jonathan Taylor channel eventually, man.
It already is, dude.
It already is. Let's be real. I'm changing the name of the channel to Jonathan Taylor Love Page. Let's talk about the most prestigious award.
Jonathan Taylor fanboy account.
Yes, honestly, dude. Or have you seen those pages on Instagram where they just post pictures and highlights of a specific player till that player like follows them pretty much, and they just do it for years? Anyways, that would be me and Jonathan Taylor. I'm starting burner accounts now. It's fine. Anyways, the most prestigious award. The reason you all came today was for the GOAT award, the league winner, right? The fantasy MVP, the guy who, I don't know, statistically he was on the most championship teams, but he most likely was because he was just that good, the difference maker. That, right? You calculate in ADP, you calculate the difference between them and everyone else in their own position, right? And they were the best when it comes down just to being the fantasy MVP. Noah, who is your fantasy MVP of the 2020 season? Do you have somebody?
Yeah, undoubtedly. First year on a new team, got traded away, got replaced on his old team by a first-round pick. I mean, if you had him in your lineup, he was the last big player to play in the championship week 15 or week 16. Stephon Diggs, man.
Yeah.
I mean, where you could get him in the draft versus he was in our league. He was the third receiver. He was wide receiver 3. He didn't have a single game under 10 points in our league. I mean, he saw in the playoffs, he saw targets of 14, 13, and 11 and converted those for 10, 11, and 9 catches. Had over 130 yards in all the playoff games and had 4 touchdowns in the playoffs. I mean, in the final week, he scored 41.5 points. Like, everyone was in awe of Alvin Kamara. And I was like, dude, you just got to wait till Stephon Diggs comes because he's going to tear it up against New England. And that's exactly what he did. I mean, he won Nino the league. Nino getting Stephon Diggs where he got him, between that and then trading for Darren Waller, that's what won in the league. Yeah. You know, and he didn't miss a game all year long, was healthy for probably the first time ever in his career, is the bona fide number 1 receiver in Buffalo, helped Josh Allen take a huge step, helped this whole offense take a huge step forward. 27 years old, excited to be where he's at. The Bills paid to get him and then paid him. I mean, Stephon Diggs, if in redraft, I would consider taking him top 5 next year.
Wow. He's definitely a first-round pick for me in redraft leagues next season. He's just that damn good, man. And then to tie it all together perfectly, 41 points championship weekend. Not only did he get you to the promised land, he made sure you got through the gates. Like, he was that good. I agree with you 100%, man. I honestly like your pick of fantasy MVP a little bit better than mine, just because of how good Stephon Diggs was, and because I didn't respect him enough coming into the season. I'll take the L, man. Like, I was under this impression of he's been so boom bust his whole career. Josh Allen has been so inconsistent when it comes to accuracy, and they're a run first team. Well, guess what? All those 3 things were false, man. Stephon Diggs is a baller, and I really do believe that not only in redraft, but he also needs the respect in Dynasty as well. Like, I definitely see him as in that top 12 at least, if not higher, Dynasty wide receiver as well.
He scored as of now, he has scored 314 points in our fantasy league.
Wow.
That is, his 2018 year was his second highest, and he had 266.
Wow. That's that's crazy, man.
He had 158 targets, 120 catches.
Oh, he led the league in targets.
And 8 touchdowns. I mean, it was unbelievable. Wow. The volume and the efficiency he had.
Yeah. You know what's funny is that I don't even know if we've seen his ceiling yet, right?
And again, he was drafted 5th, 5.05.
Wow.
Middle of the 5th round. Top 3 receiver.
Tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure if we've seen Stephon Diggs' ceiling yet. When you consider his talent, when you consider the offseason he had, his first year on a team, when you consider he led the league in both targets and receiving yards, but only had 8 touchdowns, right? Like, he has room to score more touchdowns on this team. You give him another year developing with Josh Allen. Like, I think he very well has an excellent shot of being the redraft, the fantasy wide receiver 1 for 2021 as well. I think he has a shot at it. I really do.
Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill. Outside of those three, who would you take? No, I'm not saying pick one of those three, but I go outside of those three, who are you taking over them? DK Metcalf, maybe, but probably not. Doesn't get the volume.
I have a hard time thinking of one, man. I really do, just because, like...
DeAndre Hopkins, I guess, would be the only other guy.
Yeah, D-Hop, he'll be up there.
But even then, I'd rather have the other three.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely when it comes to picking there, for sure, man. For sure. All right, I'm going to talk about my fantasy MVP real fast. The GOAT award. It's not as good as yours. I agree with you, Stephon Diggs. When you consider ADP, when you consider how he performed, he deserves this award. But I'm going to give it to Travis Kelce. I'm going to give it.
That was my other pick.
I mean, the man's 32 years old now. He's been doing this forever. He's been the tight end one for what seems like forever. Everyone's talking about how he's getting older. He's going to fall off that cliff eventually. The man averaged 20.9 fantasy points per game. Right, that's for Darren Waller, who was in second place, averaged, I think it was 16. So that's 4 more points in the second on average, man. That's on a week-by-week basis than the tight end 2. 73%. You're wondering how good he was, how consistent he was, how much of a weekly game changer he was. 73% of his games, he had 17 PPR points or more. That's insane, man. From your tight end position and where you got him in the mid-second round, that is just a weekly game changer, considering how much of a crapshoot most of these tight ends are. And did a little bit of math. If you take his average points per game, he actually tied Stephon Diggs to be the wide receiver 3. Right, like he had on a week-by-week basis, he had the same average. That's how good he was. He was a top 3 wide receiver in your tight end position. And there was so much value at running back, at wide receiver this year that you could get guys to fill in later. I don't know if he won you necessarily your league, but he was a guy week in and week out that made sure that it's just a difference maker.
Especially at a tight end position that's just a crapshoot.
It's terrible. No, just absolutely terrible. So yeah, that's why I have.
And when you look up his stats in terms of his career, had the second most targets, but had the most receptions at 105. Wow. Had the most yards right now at 1416.
Wow.
Most yards per target at 9.77 in his career. Second highest was 9.62.
Yeah.
Yards per catch, highest 13.49. So 13 and a half yards per catch.
Yeah.
And 11 touchdowns.
Wow.
I mean, the dude was
baller.
And the thing is he doesn't play the physical brand of football that Rob Gronkowski played in his prime and that George Kittle played.
Mm-hmm.
He is the definition of a finesse tight end, 6'5", 260, but is agile and knows how to get open, man. And he's a basketball player playing football.
Yeah.
You know, George Kittle is kind of like if Aaron Donald decided to play tight end.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's just he beats you because he is just so dominant at in the point of attack. But Travis Kelce's just such a stud, man. Like, how do you guard him?
Mm-hmm.
How do you guard him? And that's why a team like the Chargers draft Derwin James, because they're like, Derwin, you gotta try to lock up Kelce.
Yeah.
But I mean, he was. How do you guard Kelce? How do you guard Darren Waller? There are a handful of teams that have guys that can match up with these two. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's playing with the best quarterback in the league, on the best offense in the league, with a depleted offensive line. I mean, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, Travis Kelce. Oh my God! I mean, he might have been the best player in the NFL this year.
Yeah, he is that good, especially from a fantasy perspective. Just the difference he made, it was unfair. It was really amazing. So it's he won that award for me. Let's move on to the final award for us, and this is just a little teaser for everyone. Who is the player you're most excited for to watch in the 2021 season? This doesn't even necessarily mean fantasy. It could be a rookie, right? It could be any other player. But who are you just most excited to see on TV in 2021?
Ooh, let me think about that.
Yeah, I'll give you my answer.
Your answer. Yeah,
I'll give you my answer here, and it's Calvin Ridley, right? It's Calvin Ridley for a number of reasons. As we all know, I gave up a lot to get Calvin Ridley, and it's because I really do believe that he is going to be in that conversation, if he isn't already, as a top 5 dynasty wide receiver currently and going forward, right? I mean, let's look at it this way, right? When Antonio Brown left the Steelers, everyone was concerned about what Juju could do as the wide receiver one of that team. I don't think Julio was going to be around in Atlanta for much longer, whether they trade him, whether he retires. I mean, the man was struggling with injury, it seemed, all season. Julio Jones missed 6 games this past season, 6 total games this past season. In those games, I did the math. I went through each game, the games where Julio missed it all, and I did the math. Calvin Ridley averaged 11 targets per game. 11 targets per game during that stretch. He averaged 118 receiving yards, so almost 120 receiving yards each game that he was gone, and that totaled to a beautiful total of 21.9 PPR average, right? So in those 6 games where Julio was nowhere to be found, Calvin Ridley averaged 21.9 PPR points per game. That's tied with Tyreek Hill for the wide receiver 2 on the season. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Calvin Ridley's a locked-in top 3 wide receiver next season in fantasy, but if Julio's gone, he might be, man, because he's seen the volume, the talent's there, and he's someone who I just genuinely enjoy watching. He's just someone, I mean, we were just talking about how it seemed like last night Chris Olave would make a move, he'd catch the ball, and where's the DB? Like, we see that time and time again with Ridley, and he was able to do that without Julio distracting the defense. So he's someone who I'm just excited to watch him play. That's just what it comes down to. I love watching his highlights. I love watching going through the Falcons games or rewatching them. And, oh, man, dude, Calvin Ridley, he's someone who broke out this season and will just continue to be a top-tier wide receiver moving forward.
Man, I'm having Calvin Ridley, I'm excited to see what happens with that Atlanta coaching staff, see what happens with what they decide to do with their top 5 pick going into the offseason and how they decide. Because, this top 5 pick is going to decide how they decide to move forward with their rebuild, because that's where they are, is a full rebuild. Man, who am I excited to watch next year? Dude, it is so tough because my entire team is young, so I'm excited to watch my entire team. But if I want to pick someone that's not on my team, because, instantly I'm like, dude, CeeDee Lamb.
I was about to say, that should be the layup answer for you, man.
And it is. Honestly, most intrigued in terms of I'm just so curious how it's going to play out. Probably on my team, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Absolutely.
I'm curious just to see how it plays out. But guy I'm most excited to watch next year, honestly, probably Lamar Jackson.
Interesting.
I'm curious to see, can that offense take the next step?
Yeah.
And it seemed in that Cleveland game when he came with, the P-Gate game.
Yes.
The potty gate game.
Dump gate.
Where he could, it seemed like that was the game that something kind of flipped for him. Like it felt like he broke through another barrier in terms of like him as an NFL quarterback. He had kind of plateaued for a little bit, and everyone's like, Lamar Jackson, it must be done. Can't do it again. And I'm like, dude, I don't think so, man. He's just uber talented. You always got to defend his run, his legs. And as soon as you don't, he's going to torch you and remind you why you got to defend the run. Yep. So I'm excited to see what that offense can do. Potentially adding a veteran receiver like Allen Robinson type of thing, or a Will Fuller type of thing, something like that. And I think that offense as a whole is fun. I don't own any Ravens players, and I'm excited to watch it. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, CeeDee Lamb, probably for sure. My top 3 draft picks outside of Saquon: Clyde Edwards-Helaire, DJ Moore, CeeDee Lamb.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But outside of those guys, Lamar Jackson for sure.
Interesting. I would say if I were to add one more guy for me, it would be Jalen Hurts. I'm really excited.
Oh, yeah, dude, I love watching that whole. And there are so many new developing. Storylines isn't even the word I want to say, but like just position battles. Between what direction do teams want to head? Who wants to? What teams? Who's going to pay who? Who are they going to add? How can they view? How do teams view that they need to get better? Because what we see on TV is definitely not always what they think they do in the offseason. Because it's like, dude, why did you take him over him, or why are you paying him over him? And so I'm curious to see how teams react, how teams respond. But the Ravens, because especially if they miss the playoffs this year, man, I think that'd probably be best case scenario for them. But I wouldn't want to see the Ravens in the playoffs. But
No, I'm with you, man. It's gonna be tight. I know they're just in that window, but we'll see with the new playoff setup how it all looks. Guys, those were the awards, man. Thanks for joining us. If you made it this far, we appreciate you watching the video. We appreciate all the subscribers. If you're new, please subscribe and like. I don't know if you guys knew this. Noah and I were just talking about this. The more people subscribe, the more people like the videos, the more views our videos get. YouTube is starting to promote our videos, which is so incredibly exciting. And the more hype we get, man, the more videos, the more content, the more time and Andrew can put into this. So thank you, everybody. Please subscribe. Please continue to like and follow us. those are the awards, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful season, and we're going to start. I mean, we hear this all over the place, but the Dynasty season started, right? You think this is the offseason? No, it's time to put in the work, man. It's time to start doing the research. It's time to start watching the combo. We got a lot going forward. It's going to be an amazing offseason. So stick with us, man. It's going to be a fun journey for sure. Guys, we appreciate Noah. Thanks for jumping on, man. I always love it. Those are the awards.
Man. Oh, yeah. Always a good time. Always a good time.
All right, guys. We will be talking later. Peace.